What do you think? Go ahead and get started.
I think you might as well.
All right, let's do this. Well, I am Carlene Kirk, and of course, you know Michelle. We are both co-chairs of the Membership and Chapter Relations Committee, and we are putting this on, so hopefully we can get these forming chapters a little further along in the formation process. We've got a presentation, just kind of as talking points, and then at the end we'll have an open discussion, ask questions, share ideas, and talk about anything that we can do to help these new chapters get up and running. All right, I'm going to share my screen here. Do you see a slide presentation?
Yes.
Awesome. Uh-oh. Too much. All right, so to the question, how many chapters do we have in formation today? So here is a list. We've got Athens, Augusta, Central Savannah River area, in-town Atlanta, Macon, North Metro Atlanta, and I think the newest, which is the North Georgia Mountains.
Yep.
All of these have an email list assigned. So if you are looking to help organize these forming chapters, we can add you to those emails so that everyone can just email that single email address and everyone will get the emails instead of having to manage how many people are on each email, which is what I struggled with when I was trying to form the North Metro Atlanta chapter last year. I couldn't keep up with who was who. I didn't know anyone. So having the single email address really helps out there for communications. You can either send an email to those emails or just send an email to membership@gnps.org and we'll add you. And as new chapters join this list, we'll of course create emails for those as well. So chapter affiliation. So how do people, tell us which chapter they're in? Well, we have a new chapter affiliation form. You may have used the old, well, it's not old, it's still your membership editing form. When you join or renew, you can choose the chapter there, but you can also choose it at any time. So say you moved from Decatur, out to the coastal plain, you could go and just switch your chapter affiliation and now you're part of that chapter. And the reason that it's really important to do this is so that the state knows how much money to give to the chapters, because each chapter gets a percentage of all the members' dues. And of course, I mentioned you can change it at any time and you don't have to live where the chapter is. So say you have lots of great connections in coastal plain, even though you moved up to the North Georgia mountains, you can still, choose to be a part of that chapter if you want to. There's no restrictions, and people, of course, move out of state and still choose to be affiliated with GNPS. So, and of course, you are not restricted to attending only that chapter's events. All of the chapter's events are open to all GNPS members and of course the public as well when appropriate. So you can find this chapter affiliation form on the chapters page on the website. And of course it's also linked in this presentation. Michelle, do you want to take over for some resources we've got for chapters?
I will. And if you'll keep an eye on the waiting room and admit folks as they come in, we'll swap roles. So for new chapters that are forming, we do have a number of resources available to help because it can be a daunting task to think, I want to form a chapter in this part of Georgia. What do I do? How do I get started? So some resources that we have for you are the group email list, as Carlene just showed you, Athens@gnps.org, Macon@gnps.org. This allows people who are interested in a new forming chapter to be able to easily email each other as a group and stay in touch and keep up with the goings on in the chapter formation. In addition to that, we have a chapter quick start guide. This is available on the GNPS website under the chapters section, and we will go through that. I see Taryn holding it up. We will go through that at a high level soon. So we'll be talking more about that. We can also help you with ad hoc email campaigns. We may have GNPS members or former members who live in the area you're considering forming a chapter. We can pull a report from our membership database and provide those emails to you, or we can assist you with sending an email campaign through our membership database, Neon. And you can invite those people to join GNPS if they're not a member, and to join your chapter. It's a way to grow your membership. We also provide, GNPS has a Zoom account. So if you want to have, which we'll all be having virtual meetings at first, when you need to have a virtual meeting, you are welcome to use the GNPS Zoom account. You can get in touch with me or Carling. Membership at gnps.org gets an email to both of us, and we can find out the availability and set up your meeting and help you to get that information out to the folks you want to invite. We also have GNPS has uses Google Workspace. It's a bunch of Google tools, and this is a Google Workspace for nonprofits. So it's provided to GNPS free of charge. Yay. And one of the things within Google Workspace is Google Drive. And basically, it's electronic storage of documents. So you can put spreadsheets or documents, photos, anything like that you want to in the Google Drive. We have a set of folders for each chapter, both the existing chapters and the newly forming chapters. And it's a place you can securely store your organizational documents, anything you want, really. This is provided free of charge for you to use as you see fit. One reason we did this is we had an experience where some folks who were involved in the GNPS, not just chapter formations, but on the board, had some things stored on their personal computer, and something happened to that personal computer and all that documentation was lost forever. So we encourage you to use these Google Drive folders to store whatever you need to store for your chapter so that it's always available. We also have a new updated page on the GNPS website. It's just oriented towards chapters. gnps.org/chapters, or when you log into the page, on the far right on the top banner, if you just click on the word chapters, you'll go to that page, and it has resources listed there as well. We also have a chapter manual. This is something that we're not quite finished with. Carly and I co-chair the membership committee, and this committee has been working hard to get this chapter manual completed, and it walks you through in some detail all of the steps to not only forming a chapter, getting it up and running, but then managing the chapter afterwards. You know, once your GNPS says, okay, you're a chapter, well, then what? You know, how do you keep things going? Where do you get speakers? So the chapter manual is meant to be a guidebook to help you along that path. And as I said, it is in progress. Our goal is to have that finished by the end of May. I would say it's 90 to 95% complete now. And we are diligently working on it.
And we've been, the existing, already formed chapters have been, working with us, giving us feedback, making sure that we've got everything kind of, tooth and nail to make sure that, because I've never run a chapter. So luckily we have 3 chapters who've been running for quite some time. So,
right. Right. That's true. You know, the people on the GNPS board and a lot of the folks who are in the current leadership roles at GNPS have never been involved in the process of forming a new chapter. So it's kind of, we're helping each other to figure it out. And the folks in the existing chapters who have helped us and provided information and proofread our documents and given us feedback, it's just been awesome. We've learned things that we would never even have thought of. So that's been super helpful. We also have within the chapter manual some model chapter documents. You know, when we go through the quick start in a minute, you'll see you've got to do some legal filings. You have to file articles of incorporation. You have to have bylaws. And we have model versions of these that you can pretty much take them and just drop your chapter name in them and use them so that you don't have to reinvent the wheel, since it's something that all chapters have to do. And then, of course, another resource is us, the Membership Chapter Relations Committee. We're about a dozen people. We meet every month, and we talk about all things chapter related. And what we would like to do, and Carly, I hope I'm not saying this too early, I might be, is for all the forming chapters, have a person or two join us when we meet on that committee, just to help us stay abreast of what you guys are doing and for you guys to have an opportunity to ask questions. So we'll be soliciting folks for that soon.
And we have, we like to call them liaisons from each chapter on that committee, just so that, you know, we've got that feedback loop, right?
Right.
To get the chapters the help they need.
Right. Okay. So now the chapter quick start guide. I am going to share my screen and share with you the chapter quick start guide as soon as I find it. Sorry. All right, hang on a sec. Apparently I don't have it up like I thought I did. Oh, yes, I do. All right, let me try this again. Share screen. All right. Do you see the chapter quick start guide?
Nope, not yet.
Darn. Okay, hold on. Maybe I should have let Carling drive more than this.
Do you need me to share it?
Why don't you, since I seem to be struggling? Get out of sharing. And again, the chapter quick start guide that we're about to review is on the website, the GNPS website, so you can find it there, because we're not going to go over it in great detail today because we don't want to put you to sleep. A lot of it is just kind of, first you do this and second you do this. You know, I was thinking about this, like, you know, the process of creating a chapter, I was trying to come up with some kind of way to say, you know, what is it like? And so I'm going to say it's like planting a native garden where you've never had one before. So, you know, there are some steps you have to take. You can't just snap your fingers and it happens. You have to do some thought, you know, and do some planning and then design some beds. So there are different steps that you go through to before you have your chapter up and going. Now, Carling, I don't see the quick start anymore.
Well, I was going to show the chapters page
okay.
and where it's linked
Yeah.
real quick, but by
Okay.
the way, I think me and you have very different styles of gardening, because I kind of just throw things and hope they survive where they land.
There you go.
So just real quick, I wanted to, you know, make sure that everybody knows where the quick start guide. We may maybe try to link some quick links somewhere on here, but for now, you can find that link right here.
Yep.
All right.
Okay. So first thing to know about when you're going to be creating a chapter is you are not on your own. You have a whole team of people here to help you. You've got the membership committee, you've got the board, and it's really important that you stay in communication with us during the whole process so we can help you and so we can learn things. We might find out about struggles you're having that we wouldn't know if you're not sharing with us. So please just stay in touch with us through the first, you know, through the process. And before you even get started with a chapter, you know, step one is just some things to think about. Do you have enough members to support a chapter? Do you have enough volunteers for leadership roles? That's one of the difficulties that I think new chapters are finding is they might have 40 people who want to be part of a chapter, but finding the few people that they need to be in leadership roles can be more difficult. And a chapter will not function without leaders. So you have to have enough volunteers to have some officers and chair some committees. Chapters don't start out doing everything. They can evolve and grow as time goes on. But to get a chapter started, you have to have at least 10 members. We suspect that it takes about 50 members to keep a chapter going long term. Our 3 active chapters right now have an average of about 90 members each. So just so you'll know. And not all those members attend all the meetings or are very active, but that's about what the membership is for the current chapters. So your startup committee, they're just a group of people that says, hey, we want to start a chapter. So let's get things started. They're the team of people that just manages things until you actually become an official chapter and you're having elections and things like that. You need 3, 4, 5 people to be the startup committee. You can have as many as you want, but I'd say that's a minimum for your startup committee. And then after that, you've got a startup committee. Then the next thing we recommend doing is having a chapter interest meeting. This can be a Zoom meeting. It can be combined with an educational program if we're at a time when we can do that and have in-person meetings. We will attend your meeting. Some folks from the board will attend your meeting if you would like. We can help you with the emails, promoting the event, using the Zoom account to host the meeting. So this is when you talk to people and you start to really build the momentum around getting people involved and helping with the chapter and being a member of the chapter. This is probably also the time when you would tell people, hey, if you're not a GNPS member, go and join GNPS. And if you're not affiliated with our new chapter, go and choose that chapter on your chapter affiliation so that GNPS will know, that there's momentum there. And as Carling mentioned, members, the number of members eventually leads to a financial gain for the committee or for the chapter, and the chapter uses those funds to put on their educational programs, to pay for speakers, to do, whole field trips or workshops and different things. So it's a vital part of a chapter is getting that annual rebate from Georgia Native Plant Society. And somewhere along the way, and these steps don't always come exactly in this order, you're going to start thinking about a chapter name. What are we going to call ourselves? We recommend either a geographic or a native plant name. I particularly like geographic names because if you use a native plant name, if you're the Dogwood chapter of Georgia Native Plant Society, that really isn't meaningful to anyone as far as where you are. So when people are thinking of joining a chapter, I think if your name is geographic, it gives them a better idea of where you're actually located and operating. However, that's up to you. You and your startup committee and the folks who attend your chapter interest meeting, those folks will collaborate and come up with a chapter name that everybody likes. Now, the chapter name does require board of director approval. At this point, you can just be emailing us and saying, hey, we're thinking about using this name, because we don't want 2 chapters to both be deciding they're going to be the Dogwood chapter. And then we have a problem. So we've just got to be sure that the names are unique. And you need that chapter name for a lot of the other legal things you'll do. So that's why it's one of the first things you come up with. Then you've got to come up with a chapter address. This is also required for some of your legal documents. To open a bank account, you have to have an address. To reserve your name on the Secretary of State's website, you have to have an address. It's required for various things. So come up with an address, and it can be anyone's address. This is just where the mail is going to go and where the various organizations that require it will have that address on record. Now, of course, this can change down the line. It's not a permanent thing, and it often does as board members turn over. The next thing you can do is elect some temporary officers. So this may just be the startup committee and the few other people who are interested, but have a meeting, nominate and elect at least 3 officers, a president, a treasurer, and a secretary. Now, we also would recommend that you elect a vice president. But for the legal steps, for instance, for the Secretary of State's registration, you are required to list the names of these 3 officers. So you need at least those 3. And again, these are temporary officers. These may not be the permanent officers of the chapter. This is just getting you through the startup process. So now you've done that. Now you're going to go to the Secretary of State's website. You're going to reserve your name. There are fees for some of these things that you do, and we will reimburse you for those fees. There's $750 available to chapters for all the fees that you will incur. So you can either get in touch with us beforehand and work out the payment arrangements with our treasurer, or you can pay it and provide a receipt and be reimbursed. So you reserve your name, then you pick a registered agent. Again, this is just the person who's the mailbox for the corporation for any official communication. That's required on your incorporation documents. Then you get to step 9, which is file articles of incorporation. And we've made this as easy as possible. We have model articles of incorporation for GNPS chapters. And it really is as easy as taking that template, dropping in your chapter name, and doing any updates that need to be done. Oops. And then submitting them for approval. Carlene's going to pull these up. So where the blue text is just where you'll need to enter information that's specific to you. So your chapter name, blah, blah, blah. You can use these if you want to add to these or change these in some way. They do have to be approved by the board. Again, although that's a fairly simple process, just submitting them to us. So that's the just fill in the blank form for the articles of incorporation.
And so now you might kind of realize why we say, oh, you should use this Google Drive for all your documents so that everybody can collaborate and nothing gets lost in the shuffle.
Right, exactly. So now step 10, after you have filed for incorporation, you are required within 1 business day to have published in a newspaper in your county. And the strangest name, they call it the legal organ of your county. There's a website where you can find out what newspaper that is, and you have to file intent to incorporate, and they basically have a fill in the blank form there for you to use. And you know, GNPS will reimburse you. So here's the where you find out for your county, you know, what is the legal organ? So up there, Fulton County Daily Report. So that would be the newspaper that you would be required to file or to have published your intent to incorporate. Now, as soon as you do that, and you've registered with the Secretary of State's office, every year you have to file an annual registration. But you also, in the first year, have to file your annual registration within 30 days of incorporating. So you'll do that almost right away, and then every year ongoing. And that's something that's really important to do because the Secretary of State's office, if you don't file annually, can make your organization inactive. So super important. Then you're going to apply for an employee identification number. This is done through the IRS website. It's free. You'll need that to open a bank account. You're going to need a sales tax ID number. That's if your chapter sells anything, plants, t-shirts, anything with your logo on it. If your chapter sells anything, you will need to report your sales tax. Our treasurer can help you with that process, and there's no charge to do it. Step 14 is create a chapter mission statement. We don't mind if you just take Georgia Native Plant Society's mission statement and just use it as your own. It has to align with the GNPS mission statement, but it can be, it can vary. And that's another thing that requires board approval. Then your chapter bylaws, you have to write those up. Those chapter bylaws are an internal governing document. This is the document that says how many officers you have and how often you'll have elections and various things about the internal runnings of the chapter. We have model chapter bylaws you can use, and you can update them to suit you if you want to change them a little bit. They do require board of director approval also. Step 16 is filing for tax exempt status. This is something you do through the IRS. You use a form 1023EZ. We will help you with this, and we will reimburse you for the fee. It's a form that's several pages long, asks you a bunch of questions, and we can help you through the process. It can take a couple of months after you've submitted the form for them to give you the approval, but this is where you actually acquire your tax exempt status. And this is super important because if people are making a donation to your chapter, it's nice for them to be able to get a receipt and to be able to deduct that from their income taxes. So that is a requirement for chapters and super important. Now you're almost done. Woo! Only 16 steps. So now you've got all that done. You're going to submit your request to the board, your official request to the board for chapter approval. And it's just an online form that you say, here's our bylaws, here's our name, our address, different pieces of information, and the board will meet and vote to approve or not your chapter. And then once the board approves you, now you're a chapter. So then you start and you almost redo some of the things you've done before, because now you are an official entity, an official nonprofit, and now you must be doing things to adhere to those nonprofit requirements. So you've got to now select your official officers. So who's going to be your president, your vice president, your treasurer, your secretary, your director of membership or communication or whatever committees you foresee that you might need to have. Your members of the chapter, by then you'll have members. Well, you'll have a meeting. They'll vote on your officers. They'll vote on the bylaws. And that's your first official business meeting. You will need to keep minutes. You may need this later on. Now you can open your bank account so you can be accepting donations and getting money from GNPS and writing checks when you need to pay bills. Then your finances and accounting, step 21. Our treasurer can actually provide you with a standard set of accounts, sample budget, and other financial documents that will help you to get started so you don't have to create them yourselves. Another thing you'll need, step 22, is a live plant license. If you are going to sell plants, you will need this license. It is free. You have to renew it annually, but it's a pretty simple process. And then the last couple steps are really just a short explanation of what some things chapters are required to do. 4 activities a year. That can be field trips, workshops, educational programs. One of your meetings will be your annual business meeting when you're electing officers, if you're doing that annually. Some chapters do it every 2 years. And then step 24, just list a few of the chapter responsibilities for reports, and some of them are obvious: follow federal, state, local tax laws, so on and so forth. And there is a good document that's linked here, the exemption requirements for 501c3 organizations. If you ever have any questions about should a 501c3 organization do this or do that, go to this IRS website and read about it. And if you have any questions or feel uncertain, ask us, and we'll have our legal counsel look into it if it's something you're doubtful about.
And it might be in the chapter manual.
It might be. It might be. And then at the very bottom of this chapter quick start are just some questions that we had, and I'm sure that there are more questions than this. For instance, what the startup cost will be and what will we cover? Well, as I said before, up to $750 for the various fees. How to accept money if you don't have your bank account yet. We explained to you how to do that. How to handle in-kind donations. Whether we'll provide a standard chart of accounts. Yes, we will. Do you need a CPA? No, you don't. But you need someone with some accounting experience, someone that's organized to keep your books. Once a year, we do ask all chapters to provide a copy of an annual financial report. And this is typically the report you provide to your members at your annual meeting, just showing what money you had coming in and going out. And then other questions we have are, well, where do we find speakers? You know, we want to have meetings, but where do we find someone who can come and give a talk about native plants or whatever? And we can help you with that. There's also local resources available, and that won't be hard to do at all. Speakers' fees range from nothing to $50 to several $100s. So just, it depends on sometimes the quality of the speaker or just how philanthropic that speaker wants to be. While you're forming a chapter, the state will reimburse you for speakers while you're getting up and running. If you need to rent a venue, the state can help you with that with prior approval. Most of our chapters meet somewhere that's free when they have physical meetings. They have an extension service office or a library or something like a church room that they can use for free. So that's the best thing to do, is find something free. We can help you promote your meetings in a bunch of different ways. Then there's questions about chapter dues. Right now, chapters get 25% of the dues paid by their members, paid once a year. If you want to know who your chapter's members are, we will give someone in your chapter access to our membership database, and they can run reports and find out who those chapter members are and contact them, and so on and so forth. And we have, in our membership database, we have the ability to send emails to your chapters. We can help you get those set up and train someone on how to do it. GNPS does provide general liability insurance for chapters. So your chapter members will be covered if you go on a field trip and you do something and someone has an accident. We do have insurance. We do not provide chapters with director and officers insurance. So if your directors and officers want to have that insurance, that's something that you should look into on your own because you are a separate legal entity. Our existing chapters, I don't think, have that. So it's an up to you thing. We do have a liability waiver. So whenever you're having an event, you should have everybody sign it just to say, hey, I'm releasing GNPS from any liability. And if you've ever been on a GNPS rescue, you have completed one of those forms. It's the same form. There it is. And then questions about taxes. You'll file your own federal and state taxes. For chapters, it's pretty easy. Basically, it's an electronic postcard. It's most chapters, unless you have over $25,000 in income, which if you do, we'll be wanting to know what you're doing right. It's a really simple form and online. You will pay sales tax. On things that you sell, you'll collect and pay sales tax. We can help you with getting that set up and taking care of it. And really, there's no other taxes. You do have to register with the Secretary of State office, as I said, every year. There's a fee for that, but other than federal, state income taxes and sales taxes, that's about it. Whew, I'm out of breath.
Yeah, I didn't realize there was the FAQ at the end, because we have a whole slide for that.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
I had downloaded this when Michelle had first sent this to me. How can we access this now? Because I don't still have that. Where can we access the quick start guide that you're showing us here?
Yep. So if you go to the website and then
Okay. Are
the
you seeing?
chapters all the way on the right,
Okay.
and then here under form a chapter, you've got chapter quick start guide.
Okay. So chapters,
Okay,
form a chapter.
okay, all right, there it is, I got it.
And as we have more materials available, we'll be publishing them on this chapters page. So this is where you should go when you're looking for resources like
And
that.
bookmark it.
Yep. Okay.
So that quick start guide can be kind of overwhelming at first, but first things first, get your startup committee, host a meeting to get people interested and get those temporary officers chosen, and then do the name. And I think the name is the fun part, because that's a way that you can engage people that are interested in the chapter to make it all kind of feel like it's something you've created, right? And then the boring mailing address and all that stuff. And then you can kind of go back to that quick start guide after you've got all that done, because that's kind of a big hurdle. Then you can think about working through the steps on, getting all the documents and the filings and all that kind of stuff. So I think we covered a lot of these frequently asked questions at the bottom of the quick start guide. There's a couple little things with speakers, master gardeners, universities, like-minded organizations. We've got them all over the state, right? And then, of course, post-COVID, we've got the North Metro chapter. We held a chapter interest meeting at the Alpharetta City Hall. It was a great venue. We packed the place. It was fantastic. So we've got all kinds of community stuff around us. And then the funding, I think we did a pretty good job on that. We did change when chapter rebates were paid out for chapters to April. It used to be at the kind of more at the end of the year, but you could also request in advance. Say you're forming in September, and it'd be nice to get that money, right, to put on some events and things. You can just, make a request, and I'm sure we can make that work. And then, of course, the fundraising events is a nice way to also connect with people who are not members. And of course, the plant sales, you'll need that live plant license.
Something came up today I want to add to the fundraising. If you use Amazon to order anything like I do, you can sign up for a program that Amazon has. It's called Amazon Smile. You choose a charity, and then a percentage of your purchases goes to that charity. It's paid out once a quarter. Now you have to be all the way through the tax exempt status to get your name on that list, but that's a fundraising opportunity for chapters that costs members nothing. When they order, it's just a percent of their cost are given to the charity of their choice.
All right, it's your turn. So we're just this is an open discussion. Unmute yourself, or you can ask questions in the chat if you can't get your mic working or you don't want to talk.
Taryn, we can't hear you. There you go.
Okay, there, I got it on mute. Okay, my first question, you showed that map that has the chapters forming and all. Is that whole big green thing at the top where you're feeling that the North Georgia Mountains chapter will, and what's left of Redbud is just a rather small thing? Or, yeah.
Well, the Redbud chapter specifically, their mission is to do things in the Hall County area. And so most of their members
Okay.
are in that area. Now,
Okay.
there are Redbud members who live in the mountains. So the map is just kind of a suggestion. It's not a rule. You can live
Okay.
anywhere and be part of any chapter. And
Oh, okay.
So that's just, we had to color the map with something. So
Yeah.
that's what we came up with. But those are basically suggestions.
And that was me drawing in MS Paint, taking my
Yeah.
best guess. So it's
We had noticed on the list of the zip codes, we don't know all the areas by their names yet. We only moved up here in November, but it's like Dahlonega is closer to Gainesville than it is to Blairsville. I mean,
Right.
they might be more inclined to go to Gainesville
Right.
than to go up over Blood Mountain and come up
Right.
here for meetings and stuff. So
Absolutely.
that was okay.
Yeah. And Karen and Larry came from Florida Native Plant Society, and Florida Native Plant Society manages their chapter boundaries differently. They actually do it by zip code. So pretty much if you live in a zip code, you're in that chapter.
Yeah.
You can't pick a chapter across a state, or you have to go
Right.
through some extra steps to do it. At GNPS, you can pick whatever chapter you want wherever it is. So
Yeah. Okay.
a little different.
Did you ever find the chapter affiliation form?
Yeah.
Oh, you did find that. Okay. Never mind. Okay. Our name is already showing up. The North Georgia Mountains chapter, so that is just something that you have introduced into the documents and stuff onto the website,
Yes.
or has that already? So we still have to go through the process of getting that okayed by the board of directors, right?
Yeah, you should go through
Okay.
the official request to have that as your name. If you all agree that that's the name you want. If you want to change it to something
Okay.
else, that's basically up to you
Yeah.
and the folks in that area.
Okay. So you don't need to have the formal address yet to do that?
No,
I think
not
we're going to get a mailbox,
PO
although a PO box,
Yeah.
but okay. Or is it okay to change the address later? So if we
Yes.
started it right now with our email out here at the end of our drive,
Our-
not email, our
Mailing address.
mailing
Yes.
address here.
Yes.
And
you
then we
can.
could subsequently change it as it gets more formalized
Yes.
to, okay.
Yep.
Yes, okay. Okay, if anyone else has a question, I'm trying to clarify what my questions were.
You.
Okay. I will.
All right. Who else?
Question, Michelle.
Yeah.
Has there been any interest, and I've heard rumors about starting a chapter in Lawrenceville, kind of like maybe that's the East Metro area? I don't know.
I know that when we had the symposium in Macon, the last one we had, which was more than a year ago, there were some folks that stopped by our membership table and said, gee, we sure would like to have a chapter in Lawrenceville. All it takes is for a couple of people in that area to say, hey, we want to start forming a chapter and we can help you get on that, get that process. There is no one right now who is working on forming a chapter in that area, but there's no reason that you can't start it or anyone else in that area, because there's a good many GNPS members in that area.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So there is also a chapter interest form, which is totally optional, but it is for folks like you who say, well, I don't see a Lawrenceville chapter in this list. I'm interested in a Lawrenceville chapter and I want to help organize it. So that would help us, track who's asking for it. Or you can just send us an email and, get that email list started, and we'll get an email out to folks in Lawrenceville, and, get it started that way.
Another thing that some of the forming chapters have done, which is a great idea, is to create a Facebook group for the forming chapter as a way to get people interested and get the word out. The Athens chapter has just done one. North Metro chapter also has one, but Athens chapter just created their page. So go take a look at that and you can get an idea of what you could do with that. That's a really good way to get information out on social media.
Is there any rule of thumb as to what might be the total hours that, let's just say, the committee on a chapter would have to put towards managing the chapter? I mean, I'm just trying to get an overhead idea. I'm very busy with many other things. Right now I'm with Redbud Project, but would like to find something closer, not have to drive out to Gainesville. Not that that is a big deal, but it's, 40 minutes to get
Right.
there.
I
That
don't, I don't
That's a
have an
great
idea.
question. Honestly, I wonder it myself because now that I've joined the membership committee, I wonder how much time I would have to start a North Metro chapter. So I think we're going to ask the other chapters and get some real answers to see how much time they invest and get back to you.
That'd be great.
Yeah. And I think too, part of it can be how fast do you want to go? Because, as a chapter, you can have plant sales and plant propagation and do habitat certifications and a lot of the other programs that GNPS has, you can implement at the chapter level. But you don't have to start out doing that. If you start out just doing 4, field trips or meetings a year and, you get some folks and get some speakers, it's going to be a lot less time than if you're trying to also implement a propagation committee and other things. So there's probably a little bit of an it depends, but it would be a good idea to just get from the other chapters what their ballpark number of hours is, because I think that's an important question.
I don't know if she does or not.
Okay. I had one other another question here. When Michelle was working through all these steps, in order on step 9 to start the whole articles of incorporation, we first have to get the board of directors to approve our name, right? So is that really the first thing we need to?
Yeah, because you have that name on.
Is there a form for that?
We do
Is
have,
there-
yeah, we've got
Okay.
an electronic form that we can get the link to you that you can submit each thing that you need for approval, the name, the address, and the other pieces of information. We can get that. to you.
Okay. So that's something that you send to us. It's not somewhere in this quick start guide.
It is not currently. It might be
Okay.
there in the future, but for right now,
Okay.
we have it and we can send it to you individually.
Okay, all right.
Thank you.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
So I have a question then. For the chapters that are listed, forming chapters, what are the next steps? I think several people have listed their names in these chapters. What's the step 1, 2, and just 1 and 2?
Well, it depends on what the chapter's done so far. Sally, what chapter are you
I'm interested in the in town.
in town?
Mm-hmm.
So there was the quick start guide is kind of what you're looking at, right? So you need a startup committee. It's a good idea to hold a chapter interest meeting just to make sure that you've got the membership and the people interested, because you want at least 10 people in the chapter. That's the requirement. And then the name and the mailing address, and then the temporary officers. Those are I had a slide that's kind of the 5 steps. Once that's done, I recommend going back to the quick start guide and working through all the filings and the documents. So the startup committee, name, address.
I guess the question I had is even before that is how do you get a startup committee together? Since I haven't seen that list. I haven't seen the list online that you signed up. I hope I'm not the only one.
I don't think you are. No, there's the email address. I can't remember. Is it intown@gnps.org? I think it's on the, we'll be sharing the presentation afterwards. We'll make it available so you can get the link. Send an email to that address and say, I want to be on the, I want to get this chapter started. And then we can add other people who have expressed an interest in getting that chapter started. And you guys just within your own group will come up with, well, which 4 of us are going to get the ball rolling, or 6 of us, or however many.
You just need people to raise their hands.
Right.
All right. And we also know, Sally, that there would be a lot of people interested, a lot of current members. And so what we could do for that one as well, or any of these, is put out a blast to the membership specifically. You know, Sally's putting together an in-town formation group. And if you haven't stepped up before, now's the time to raise your hand. You know, we can do that just to rev people back up again.
And Sally, this is Betty. I want to be part of the group too, and I had reached out. So yeah, this is great. I think we'll do fine to have an Atlanta in-town group.
I think there are over 50 people who have already indicated that they want to affiliate with the in-town chapter. So I think you'll probably have, once you guys all get talking to each other, you'll probably have no problem coming up with the people you need to get things started.
But the document you put together is the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I used to do this for a living. I have
wow.
never seen such a brilliant, concise document, because it's hard to start a nonprofit. And you're just amazing. I cannot imagine how many hours it took you to put that together.
Thank you.
But it's something that other people trying to start a nonprofit could use. So yeah, you're just amazing.
Thank you. Well, it took a village.
Well, it shows. I mean, it's just a brilliant document. It really, really is excellent.
Thank you.
So one idea I had to kind of get some of the forming chapters have been kind of quiet since, you know, the past year or so, so I think there's 6 in that list, is get a Zoom meeting for everyone on the books, just a chapter interest meeting. One of us will be on to help host, and just get the people who are interested in that startup committee talking. So we can kind of help get a date for each of those forming chapters, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, because I mean, we can even just send out an email to all the 50, however many people have affiliated within town and say, hey, we're going to have a meeting because we want to we need to come up with a startup committee and start doing these steps, and then move forward. I think having those meetings soon is just going to get things moving in the right direction.
Okay.
So if you want to be on that email list and you're not, go ahead and you can either let us know here or send us an email, and then I think we'll send kind of some dates and times to each of those email addresses to see when each chapter wants to hold their meeting, and then we'll help send out an email blast to everyone, so that they know when it is.
What's your email?
membership@gnps.org.
Okay. It would be nice to have chapters in all our regions.
Agreed.
Yes.
It's just, I think it's, for me, because I'm involved with so many other things as in addition to GNPS, it's just a bit daunting. It's a lot of little things you got to do. It's not like it's hard, but I think over time it might be more time consuming than some of us can maybe fit into our busy lives. I also wonder how COVID has, how you react to the COVID virus. You know, is there a decrease in membership? Is, you know, what?
Actually, I looked at membership right before this meeting. We have 1,113 members in GNPS. So we're about 20 members away from the maximum number we had last year or just pre-COVID. So we are right at where we normally are. I think some people did not renew their membership because they just, you know, nothing happened in 2020. There weren't any meetings. There wasn't anything to do. There weren't rescues until, you know, much later in the year. But hopefully with these new chapter organizing efforts, people will get a little more excited. And even if they're virtual meetings, it's a start, you know, and we all need to be following the CDC guidelines, but you can do an outdoor field trip and stay so many feet apart from each other and wear a mask. And, go through and identify some native plants in a park or something. I mean, there are outdoor opportunities, even if we're not quite ready for large in-person meetings yet.
Hey, and I would like to address one of your other comments. This is Ellen Honeycutt. If you look back at the history of GNPS, the people who organized it are for the most part not here anymore. So that's just the evolution of things, that you might get it started and then just someone else will pick it up. And so don't be afraid to get it started and know that the next person will take the baton from you and go further, because of course people move, sometimes they die. It's just all different things for people to move on. So don't be afraid to get something started, and there'll be people that will take over when you're ready to step down.
And another thing I want to say about that is, prior to 2020, really, GNPS was an Atlanta-centric organization with 3 chapters. And, the end of 2019, we voted on new bylaws, which changed our structure to be a statewide governing board with chapters all over the state. So it's a new model. And, the more chapters we have, I think the more we'll learn and we can share with each other. And like Ellen said, people don't stay forever. Typically in a chapter, people are elected for 1 or 2 years and then they move on. And then someone else fills that slot. So it's not a lifetime commitment. You can do what you can do for as long as you can. But I think with also the resources that GNPS is now providing for chapters, which didn't exist in the past, are going to be super helpful for chapters to help them not have to do so much work. So hopefully that'll relieve some of the burden. It's a labor of love.
Sarah asks, if enough people express interest for starting a chapter through the chapter interest form, what happens? Well, I don't think it's really kind of a trigger type of thing. That will let the membership chapter relations committee know that, hey, there's enough people interested to, get the email list going and help them start a chapter interest meeting and make sure they know what they're getting into, and make sure all the resources are there. And kind of like what we're doing here is we're letting you all know, what's out here and how we can help. And please feel free to tell us how we can help that, maybe we don't know about yet.
And as Ellen said, we're happy to do an email blast to just the entire membership to say, hey, we've got 15 people in the Lawrenceville area who are wanting to start a new chapter of GNPS. So here's how you guys can get in touch with them if you're interested in being part of that movement. So we can help get the word out for you.
Of course, I'll have to take this all under advisement. My wife is sitting next to me here, and I don't dare jump in on anything new.
I totally understand. You're a smart man.
Well, that's how we cope.
There you go. So Mary asked if anyone else is from here on the meeting is from the Augusta CSRA area. So anyone else from the Augusta area? Maybe not. And then Kenneth asked about the status of the Macon chapter. I am checking in with the young lady who was driving the Macon chapter efforts a little over a year ago. Her name was Allison, because we had a really good chapter meeting or chapter interest meeting in Macon at the last symposium we had in Macon, and we had over 50 people attend. Now, not all of them were interested in Macon. Some were interested in other areas, but I know that there's a good interest down there. And We just need to get that group back together and talking to each other and getting them moving forward. So the current status of Macon chapter is we're checking in with them to see where they are, and then we'll get those folks in the Macon area talking to each other. And Michelle Zupan says she's from CSRA chapter. And Taryn asked, who else is here in the North Georgia Mountains area? Blairsville, Young Harris. Susan is. I don't know which Susan. Y'all help me
Blue
out.
Ridge, Hiawassee.
Yeah.
Part of that too. Yeah.
Yep.
Susan is. Yeah. Okay. That's Susan Muller.
Zemo.
Zemo. Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
Yes. Great. From Blairsville. Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Awesome. And one thing too that came up that we were talking about in a meeting was looking at certain parts of Georgia, and it's like, well, we don't have many members there. Maybe there's not an opportunity for a chapter. But what I think is actually going on is sometimes we don't have members in an area because it just was not geographically feasible for them to drive to Atlanta. So I think there's a big group of people in Peachtree City, Fayetteville, that area down in Southwest Georgia that would love to be in a GNPS chapter. And we've just got to have some outreach efforts to pull in people who aren't maybe current GNPS members and get them join and get a chapter going.
COE.
184.
And Nancy asked, is anyone from Cumming area or close? Nancy, I'm from Gainesville. I'm not that far from Cumming. Anyone else Cumming area? No one's responding. And after this meeting, this is not the end, this is the beginning, this is a kickoff. So email us at membership@gnps.org if you come up with other questions or ideas or anything. We're here to help this chapter movement and, get new chapters started and find out what chapters need forming and current chapters. We're here to help all of those.
Hey, Michelle, this is Lori. If I could jump in and make a few comments.
Please.
So I wanted to just give a little bit of a plug about why we wanted to have more chapters. One of the things we thought about was how the native plant movement has gained so much traction nationwide in the past couple of years. I'm sure you've all been aware of that. And in fact, as Michelle mentioned, we've had a lot of new members who've joined in the past year. And I think that's because so many people have spent so much time at home and gardening and becoming aware of the importance of native plants. And so, the idea of having more chapters is that we'll have more grassroots, boots on the ground of people to help spread the gospel about native plants, but not just spreading the gospel, but spreading the correct gospel. So not only will you have the support of the state board from a standpoint of starting your chapter and running your chapter, but also expert native plant, advice and people who can help answer technical questions about native plants. Because that's, and a lot of us get into GNPS because we want to learn, and we may feel a little daunted about starting a chapter because we might say, well, I'm not a native plant expert. What will I do if somebody asks me a question? But we have a lot of technical expertise on our state board, our state committees, the conservation committee, our education committee, and we are working, in addition to the chapter manual, we're working on developing curriculum things, education pieces that you can use to help, engage and train your members, so that we'll all be spreading the same correct information, if that helps.
Thanks, Lori. And if any of you don't know, Lori is the vice president of GNPS, and Ellen, who spoke to us earlier, made some comments as the president of GNPS. So you've got a lot of support here, the board, the membership committee.
I also wanted to offer, I know that having meetings can be intimidating. So I think, Michelle, you probably said that we would help with any meetings if you guys wanted to have a Zoom formation call. If you wanted to do an educational presentation, I know there's several of us that would be willing to be that educational presentation if you like. We just want to make sure you get up and get going, and we would help you any way we can.
Okay, who else has questions?
Who's here from anybody in Roswell or Alpharetta?
Joan Hostetter here. Joan Hostetter here. I'm Roswell, kind of south of North Point Mall.
Oh yeah, I think I remember your email. Yep.
And I'm from Kennesaw.
That's Gail.
So that would be, yes, Gail. That would be the closest.
I would reckon that there's enough people in Cobb, West Cobb, East Cobb, North, that deserves its own chapter.
Yeah, actually, about 60% of GNPS members are not affiliated with the chapter. They haven't gone on the website and said, I'm going to be in this chapter. So there's a lot of opportunity out there for current GNPS members, who live in certain areas or maybe are close to your area, to be brought into the new chapters that are forming. All right, it's getting awfully quiet in here. Well, I think we can wrap this up now. And as I said, if you have questions you think of after this meeting, email us and we will get back to you. We want to start putting you guys in touch with each other so we can, get some movement going, get some chapters started, because I think we'll all be happier when we have a chapter and start having meetings again and doing the things we love to do. All right. Well, if no one else has questions, thank you all for joining us. We really do appreciate it. And we look forward to talking to you and seeing you one day in the future.
So much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you.